Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks. On the road again. Well, not really on the road. We're just going down for another beach session today. Had a few classes this morning. One of the good things about working online is that you can do those classes from anywhere in the world. I was doing them in Australia. I can do them from here. And of course, when you're in Madrid, you can combine different types of work as well. But definitely recommend working online, as the internet does provide that opportunity nowadays. Good connections, internet connections of course, fast. You can have good broadband. Even here in Portugal now, in this place, it took a long time to get it. In fact, I only got a good fiber connection here a couple of years ago, but everything going okay now from that point of view, and you can upload videos and have those video calls and all of those things. So we are progressing. Of course, we don't have the speeds that we have in Madrid here. You probably get them in Lisbon and Porto, the bigger cities. But here, of course, we are a bit limited. You can pay for more, but don't really need it. So lots of feedback on yesterday's video about those EU funds, those recovery funds. Lots of money coming down to the Spain government, to the Portuguese government, and a lot of people skeptical about how that money is going to be spent. The track record of governments in these countries obviously make people a little bit skeptical, and that's the issue. Are they going to do a better job this time around? We will wait and see. I'm not overly optimistic, I'm going to be honest. Having been in Spain for a long time and spending a fair bit of time in this country as well. Spain and Portugal had different models on how they spent the money. Spain put a lot of free motorways in. For example, in Madrid you can drive virtually anywhere for free. In this country you can't. They chose a sort of pay model in this country. So they got European funds, built highways, but decided to slap the taxpayer with an extra fee if they wanted to use the roads. And it's surprising because the price of fuel in this country is also a lot more expensive than it is in Spain. For example, if you get a gas bottle, it costs about 25 euros for a gas bottle, and in Spain it's about 13. So it's almost double the price here for butane gas. And yeah, so where do those taxes go? That's the question. Taking a bit of a different route today. Had a few people say the other day that the towns that I'm showing people are ugly and that there are better places in Spain and Portugal. No doubt about it. Peniche is not the most beautiful place in the world. I admit that. I don't come here for the beauty. I come here to get an authentic feeling of Portuguese life. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for a tourist area. We're not looking to go to the Algarve or some of the other tourist places in this area here. There's a place called Sierra del Rey, which is full of British people and Germans, and I mean, you know, if you want to go there, fair enough, but I prefer to get amongst the Portuguese and have a more authentic experience if that's possible. And I enjoy it, seeing how people live. As I said, you get that more authentic experience. But I do agree there are more beautiful places in the countries than this one. But it's not all about beauty. I've put out lots of videos over the years of nice places. I've been to Albarracin in Aragon. It's a nice place. Been to Chinchon, which is a nice little village as well. I've been to lots of places around the place. So you can watch those videos if you don't want to see these ones here. But anyway, you can see this is all industrial. For example, there's a port on this side. It's an industrial town. Tourism came here late. Now it's probably one of the main sources of income for people, but it wasn't for many, many years. And of course, the Portuguese discovered the beach, they discovered surf, and that's a huge industry here now, surf camps, surf classes and things like that. But it wasn't for many, many years. And of course, people had to eat, so what do? You put up a factory. Now just coming into the beach here, a different beach today. It's very close to a beach called Supertubos, where they have a world tour surf competition. Or at least they used to. Don't know whether they still do. Peniche was on the tour for many, many years at Supertubos, and that's where we are here now. So I'll pick up the video in a minute. I'll just park the car. And we'll go and check out and see if there's any waves. We're not optimistic, but you never know. So I'll pick up the video when I come back. All right, so we'll pick the video back up again. Quite humid today, and not a lot of waves, unfortunately. Had a bit of a run-in with the lifeguard who didn't want us to go into the water. He said that there wasn't enough visibility and they couldn't guarantee our safety. But that's what you get here in Portugal, because even the beaches are regulated. Even a day like today where it's completely flat, very few waves, because there was a bit of fog, they didn't want people in the water, and so we ended up leaving, unfortunately. But it is what it is, unfortunately. It is what it is. Now, I got a bit sidetracked before, but we were talking about those European funds and whether the Spanish government is going to use them responsibly. Lots of comments, as I said, of people doubting, people a little bit skeptical, of course, because, as I said, we've seen it before. We've seen money disappear. We've seen money disappear on airports. We've seen money disappear on roads that lead to nowhere, and that's always going to be a problem. Of course, I'm sure that the government has good intentions, but there's always somebody that gets in the way, and of course that's when that money starts to disappear, as we saw in the 2008 period, and also before that as well, when Spain was going through those boom days. That's when all of those infrastructure projects came up because of those structural funds, because there was just too much money coming in and there's no control. One of the words I saw in the comment section was transparency, and that is the key to everything. There's no transparency. Nobody knows where the money comes in, nobody knows where the money's spent, and it just disappears. But again, you have to be optimistic that they're going to spend the money wisely and people are not going to miss out. I mean, that's the objective, right, of a socialist government, to look after the people, to look after the workers. So we'll see. But anyway, not optimistic about that. And of course, the money's going to go to the typical sectors. Of course, it's going to go to the tourism sector a little bit. It's going to go to the car industry, of course. It's going to get into the hands of all of the big companies. Of course, that's what always happens. You can see that that's where the money always ends up. They print more money and it ends up in the same people's hands, because that's the system that we're living in. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not completely against this system that we have here, but sometimes it's very, very difficult to understand, especially when you see those huge fortunes. Because I think Spain was talking about getting something like 75 billion first up, and that's the fortune of Spain's richest man, basically. Amancio Ortega, successful businessman with the Inditex Group, and a huge personal fortune. And we'll see how much more money his empire can rake in, and all of these other billionaires around the world that play the system very, very well. And a lot of people questioning the role of the EU. I sometimes wonder what that role is. We saw with those countries in the north of Europe that didn't want to give money to the south because they don't trust the way the money's going to be spent. They want reforms to happen. They want Spain to change its labour market, as I said. They want Spain to change its pension system. Somebody said in the comment section, I think it was old JB in London, he said, too many politicians in Spain. That's always a little bit controversial because people pop up and say there's more politicians in other places. But I agree, a lot of politicians in Spain. 17 autonomous communities, municipalities, central government, a lot of people there sucking that money out of the system with wages, advisors, schemes, and away it will fly. Now we'll go for a drive along here. This is one of the more scenic routes here in Peniche. We'll head up to the lighthouse at the end of this road. You can see all of the factories on the side of the road here. As I said before, this is mainly an industrial area, or at least it was. And it sort of has that balance between tourism and industry, which is a difficult balance, let's be honest. And if you want a beautiful part of Portugal, a place like Nazaré, I'd recommend. Some of the interior cities as well, quite attractive. Óbidos is a place here that I would recommend visiting. But as I said, I love Peniche. There's something about it that I like, and it is difficult to put my finger on, but anyway. And as somebody said, the southern countries are the European Union's playground. Spain, the Florida of Europe, of course. The good weather, the cheaper lifestyle, the more relaxed way of life. People come down looking for holidays, let their hair down a little bit, and that's always going to be the issue. The serious north versus the not so serious south. Bit of a stereotype perhaps, but it is what a lot of people believe. And a final question that popped up yesterday was about schools and whether schools are going to open again in September. As far as I know, the plan is for schools to open. Of course, it's all going to depend on the health situation and whether kids are allowed to get back into classrooms, or whether there's going to be online learning as there was in that 3-month or 4-month period before the schools finished in March, April, May. So we'll see what happens there. Schools are treading cautiously, let's say. I don't think there's any clear directives at the moment. Nobody wants to dip their toes in the water to see, and we're going to have to wait and see. But I think the idea is to go back to some type of normality in schools. Obviously reduce classroom sizes. They're going to have to use spaces that weren't being used before for classrooms, and maybe bring in some type of blended learning for a lot of the kids. I also said my son is changing schools next year because, to be honest, we weren't happy with the public system and the way they handled the crisis. The teachers really seemed to drop off. They weren't interested. We even heard one teacher say that her job was to teach in classrooms. It wasn't to teach online. That's what she trained for. That's what she got her public exam to do. It wasn't her responsibility to move into an online classroom. She didn't even have an email address, and a lot of other teachers just weren't taking it seriously, unfortunately. So we've decided to move to this concertado model, which is basically a subsidized private school, and we'll see how that goes. Apparently they're a lot better adapted to technology. Kids use tablets, and that's obviously something that we didn't have in the state school system. The state school system lacks resources, and that became evident during the health crisis, and that's basically what we saw. So we're going to try and change and see if we get a better crack at education this year. Start to wrap the video up. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Thumbs up, thumbs down for the video if you liked it or disliked it. See you in the next one. Hasta luego.